Didn't want to address a gay character. It wasn't that at all. Sophia came in and was so strong that that's why they deleted the housekeeper.
Can I get something to eat, or is the fancy man in the kitchen?
NBC loved the pilot and ordered 13 shows for the fall. That was the good news. The bad news, Susan Harris created a great show, but she didn't want to take on the responsibility of writing and producing a sitcom.
She was suffering at that time with that chronic fatigue syndrome. Such an attractive woman, and I liked her, and I felt so bad for her, and they still haven't found a cure for that.
Susan totally burnt herself out on television at the end of Soap, and really kind of took a forced hiatus. She really wanted to just step back and get off the merry-go-round and the insane ride that television is all about.
Susan Harris wrote a few episodes to get the series going. Producers needed to find a stable of writers fast if they wanted to keep the Golden Girls from taking an early retirement.
So what Susan wanted was a life.
She wrote a lot of the episodes in the
She
first
wrote
year,
a lot of it. She wrote
which is how I believe why
the
we were so
beginning of the
successful.
first season, but we also had an extraordinary staff behind her.
The producers were sold on the writing staff, but the ladies were tougher to please. 31-year-old Barry Finero was brought on board as an executive story consultant.
We had never met the ladies before, and Tony said, okay, let's start reading this. And B said, well, let me stop everybody for a second. She goes, where the hell is the white hair? And they said, what? She goes, where the hell's the white hair? She goes, you've hired kids to write this show about women in their 60s.
Well, I think that each of us, first of all, the actresses were all older than these kids, but not only that, we were all fairly successful by that time, and they were just novices.
Bea, you know, was very comfortable on television with Norman Lear, and why shouldn't she be? He was a master.
And luckily it read really well, and at the end of it, she closed the script, and she went like that, and everybody applauded.
My God, were they brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant.
Most of the boys I dated in college were just for the stories.
You must have more stories than O. Henry.
All the worries about the writing were solved. Production was moving full speed ahead. In the summer of 1985, NBC stepped into high gear to generate buzz for the fall debut of the Golden Girls.
We had tremendous confidence, and it wasn't surprising to us when we put the promotion on the air all summer that the audience feedback was, this is hilarious, we loved this, and we had great confidence that we could bring a large audience to this show.
The promising new sitcom was going to need all the hype it could get.
TV Guide wrote this article before it premiered just saying that this is the greatest thing, you know, that's come along in 10 years, and a statue should be erected, you know, of Susan Harris outside, you know, the Writers Guild and all. So, I mean, there was a high expectation, but, you know, you never know. Again, I think everything was stacked against it. It was in a death slot. It was on Saturday night.
NBC executives were banking on the Golden Girls drawing an audience both young and old.
We picked Saturday night at 9 o'clock really because we felt this show could be an anchor for the night. The tentpole theory, if you will. We believed on this night that right at the heart of the center of the night, if we put something that was unbelievably strong, audiences would come into that point, and that would be our stronghold, and hopefully we could program well up to it and program well after it.
And the network ran in its entirety the pilot for the sponsors and affiliates at when they announced the schedule. And it was a remarkable experience for us. There was about 2,000 people in the ballroom. So we had 2,000 people laughing big time, heads snapping back like wheat fields, you know, just laughing back and forth at the ladies and the words and the great production. And we knew we had something.
All the signs were positive. But the true test would come when the Golden Girls premiered on Saturday night, September 14th, 1985. With a lot of hype and just as much hope, NBC set the bar high when the Golden Girls debuted in September of 1985. The premiere episode looked strong, and the cast was confident.
You know what that does to hearts that only beat a few times a week?
But network executives weren't sure how many viewers would tune in during the show's tough time slot, Saturday night at 9.
The show really came out of the gate, and bam, it was spectacular.
Oh, it is wonderful dating in Miami. All the single men under 80 are cocaine smugglers.
That night, the Golden Girls beat out the Saturday Night Movie on CBS and the ABC drama Lime Street. It was NBC's strongest comedy premiere since Chico and the Man debuted in 1974.
It ended the week at about 25 million viewers, so immediately from day one that show was a hit.
Betty just couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that she was in such a hit. She'd been in so much television, and she just expected it to be good but not spectacular. And I thought it was going to be spectacular from the very first moment I laid eyes on it.
After a Mary Tyler Moore show, you don't think it's ever going to, you've had it. You will work and you will do other shows, but you'll never have something like that.
We were thrilled. But we knew what we had. We really did, because starting with the first script, I mean, you don't see writing like that.
I thought we deserved being in the top 10, because I thought we were just about as funny as anybody else, certainly. And I was not exactly surprised by it. I was gratified by it, very happily so.
I'm so happy and so sad. Kind of a happy sad. Speaking of sad, Blanche.
The pilot grabbed an audience, and the show didn't let go during the entire first season.
The thrill of victory, the agony of defeat.
It was appointment television on Saturday night. People stayed home. They didn't go to the movies. They stayed home and watched Golden Girls because it was the best entertainment that could be found anywhere.
The Golden Girls introduced audiences to women they hadn't seen on TV before. These ladies were senior citizens, but they didn't sit around collecting Social Security checks.
Dorothy, I've just discovered a great new way to meet more men.
More men? You're gonna need a turnstile in your bedroom.
Mort Nathan and the other writers gave the gals a lot of attitude.
The Golden Girls were racy, and they were a little naughty and a little shocking because there were ladies in their 60s who were talking about some pretty taboo subjects at the time.
In terms of some of the things that we were permitted to say, I think I hate to use the word got away with, but I think it's true, we got away with a lot of it because we were all older people. Like when Sophia would say the most, salacious things, it was ludicrous because here's this little lady, with all the white hair, and so we got away with it.
I wonder what Rose is doing right now.
You mean you wonder if she's doing it right now?
The writers had the freedom to be risque, but occasionally the network censors stepped in.
We got to push the envelope a lot, some of the sexual references, some of the language, and we would give, it's an old trick, we would sometimes put in a few extra things for the censors.
Dorothy and Sophia are playing Scrabble, and Sophia says, okay, there, I win the game. And she starts to leave, and Dorothy looks at, she says, you can't say that. Piswam is not a word. And Sophia says, yes, it is. She says, all right, use it in a sentence. Well, she said, all right, after all the kids got out of the swimming pool, the water was Piswam. And the network said, you can't say that.
And they'd call us up, apoplectic, and we'd have the big fight, and we'd say, all right, I'll cut this reference, I'll cut this joke.
Okay, so then they had to rewrite it to where she says, you can't say that, that's not a word. Oh yes it is, use it in a sentence. She said, all right. She said, disdam is not a word, disdam. She said, yes it is, I'm tired of this damn game. That they let us do.
The veteran actresses knew how to deliver a line with punch. But more importantly, the sitcom showed life doesn't end at 50.
Oh, that recurring dream I have where I'm running naked through a train that keeps going through tunnel after tunnel while a sweaty bodybuilder chases me. He said he thinks it's sexual.
Well, you don't think of older women living together as being independent. They lived together not really for economic reasons. They lived together for companionship.
And from the middle-aged people, my fan mail was, thank you for allowing us to be so young again. Letting us dress young, letting us think young, letting us feel as young as we feel. Because so many women have been told over the years, once you're over 50, it's over, or 40, whatever it is. That's not so. It's just not so. And we proved it.